Jonathan Hayes had a life filled with luxury fast cars, a big mansion, and a fortune that seemed endless. But none of it mattered after he lost his only son, Daniel, 5 years ago in a tragic accident. Every Sunday, without fail, Jonathan would visit Daniel's grave at a quiet cemetery on the city's edge. It was the only place where he could feel the full weight of his grief. One Sunday, holding Daniel's favorite white lilies, he noticed something strange. A boy, no older than 10, Saturday cross-legged in front of the headstone. His clothes were ragged, his face smudged with dirt, and his hair was unkempt. The boy looked like he had been living on the streets. Jonathan frowned, clutching the flowers tighter. Who was this boy? Why was he here? The cemetery was private, always quiet, and rarely had visitors. Jonathan cleared his throat, voice sharp but tinged with curiosity. "Hey, kid, what are you doing here?" The boy looked at him with wide eyes, filled with a mix of fear and defiance. For a moment, they stared. Jonathan, tall and imposing in a suit, and the boy, small and fragile, yet with a spark of strength in his gaze. Without a word, the boy scrambled up and ran into the woods on the edge of the cemetery. Jonathan stood there, stunned. His grip on the lilies loosened as he took a step forward, but the boy was already gone. His heart pounded not just from the surprise but from a flood of questions. Who was that boy? Why was he at Daniel's grave? Why did he run away? That night, the image of the boy haunted Jonathan. He kept seeing that thin frame, the dirt-streaked face, those piercing eyes. Something about him felt familiar, but he couldn't place what. He needed answers. The next morning, Jonathan called Marcus, his private investigator. Marcus had helped him with many business issues over the years. "Find someone for me," Jonathan said, voice steady. "A boy about 10. He was at my son's grave yesterday. Find out who he is and where he came from." Marcus didn't ask questions. He simply nodded and got to work. While Marcus searched, Jonathan's mind churned. He had built walls around his heart, buried his pain in work and wealth. But now, those walls were beginning to crack. Marcus worked tirelessly for days, checking security videos, talking to neighbors, and reaching out to shelters and schools. Still, Jonathan's impatience grew. He couldn't focus on anything else. All he thought about was that boy and the mystery surrounding him. After what felt like forever, Marcus finally called. "I found him," Marcus said. "His name is Sam. He's been living on the streets with his mom, Clara. They move around a lot trying to stay hidden. Sam visits the cemetery often, for months now." Jonathan's heart pounded. "Where are they now?" he asked quickly. "They're in an abandoned warehouse on the east side of the city," Marcus replied. "It's not a safe place." Without hesitation, Jonathan grabbed his coat and headed straight to the warehouse. As he drove through the city, questions flooded his mind. Why had Sam been visiting Daniel's grave? What connection did a street kid have to his son? Why was Clara hiding everything? When he arrived at the warehouse, the answers might finally come. The building looked empty and run down. Its windows were broken, and graffiti covered the walls. He stepped inside, the sound of crunching glass under his expensive shoes. The air was damp and cold, and water dripped softly from somewhere above. "Hello," Jonathan called out, his voice bouncing off the empty walls. "Is anyone here?" For a moment, there was only silence. Then, from the shadows, a small figure appeared. It was Sam, looking even more fragile up close. His clothes hung loosely on his thin frame. Sam stared at Jonathan with a mix of fear and curiosity. "Who are you?" Sam whispered. "I'm Jonathan Hayes," Jonathan responded gently. "I am Daniel's father. I saw you at his grave. Can you tell me why you were there?" Sam hesitated, glancing nervously behind him. From the darkness, a woman stepped forward. She was thin and tired, her face full of hardship. Yet, her eyes held strength that caught Jonathan's attention. "I'm Clara," she said cautiously. "I'm Sam's mother. We didn't mean to disturb your grief. We just needed a place to remember." Jonathan frowned. "Remember what? What does my son have to do with you?" Clara took a deep breath, her hands trembling. "Daniel was Sam's brother," she said softly. His words hit Jonathan like a punch. He staggered back, his mind spinning. "What are you saying? Daniel was my only son. He had no siblings." Tears filled Clara's eyes. "Daniel didn't know about Sam. I was pregnant when he died," she whispered. "I never got the chance to tell him." Jonathan felt the world tilt beneath him. He stared at Sam, seeing Daniel in the boy's face. He saw his son's features in his eyes. It was like looking at a ghost, a living reminder of the son he lost. Jonathan frowned, struggling to grasp Clara's words. Daniel had a brother, a son. That boy, so, was his grandson. The weight of this truth pressed down hard. For a moment, he felt like he couldn't breathe. "Why didn't you tell me?" Jonathan finally asked, voice trembling, anger mixed with disbelief. "All these years, I didn't know. I could have helped. I could have been there for him." Clara looked down, her hands clasped tight. "I was scared," she admitted. "After Daniel died, I didn't know what to do. I had no family, and I thought you wouldn't believe me. You seemed so distant before the accident. I thought you'd think I was lying or just after money." His heart broke at her words. He'd been so absorbed in his work, in building his empire, he had ignored his own son. Now, he faced the consequence: his grandson, living in poverty and unaware of his family. Sam had been silent until now. He spoke softly, almost afraid. "Are you really my grandpa?" he asked, his voice small, but curious. Jonathan knelt down to his level. "Yes, so," he said softly. "I am. I'm sorry I didn't know about you before." Sam looked at him carefully, then nodded slowly. "It's okay," he said. "Mom says you didn't know, but will you help us now?" Tears filled Jonathan's eyes. He gently placed a hand on Sam's shoulder. "Yes, so, I will help both of you. You don't have to live like this anymore." Clara stepped closer, her face a mix of relief and worry. "I don't want your money," she said firmly. "I just want a better future for Sam. He deserves that, and he will get it." Jonathan stood up, not just because of money, but because he's family. Family takes care of each other. Over the next few days, Jonathan made plans. Clara and Sam would move into a small, cozy apartment near his home. He bought a tutor for Sam and helped Clara find a steady job. More than that, he spent time with them, getting to know Sam better and learning about the challenges Clara faced. Slowly, he built a bond with the family he had never known. One evening, while they sat in the apartment, Sam looked up at Jonathan with a shy smile. "Grandpa," he said softly, "can you tell me about my dad?" Clara had told him he was brave. Jonathan's heart swelled with emotion. He nodded and began sharing stories about Daniel, his laughter, kindness, and dreams. As he spoke, he realized what he'd been missing all these years. Wasn't the money or success, but the connection, love, and sense of belonging. Over the weeks, Jonathan's life changed in ways he hadn't expected. He started spending less time in his office and more time with Sam and Clara. He took Sam to the park, helped him with homework, and even taught him how to ride a bike. For the first time in years, Jonathan felt alive and purposeful. Clara was still cautious. She appreciated his help, but was wary of his wealth and influence. Having struggled to care for Sam alone, relying on someone as powerful as Jonathan made her uneasy. One afternoon, sitting in the apartment, Clara finally voiced her worries. "Jonathan," she said softly, "thank you for everything, but I need to know, were we just a project to you? Something that makes you feel better about your past?" Jonathan was caught off guard. He had been so focused on making amends that he hadn't thought about how his actions might seem. He looked at her and said sincerely, "Clara, it's not just guilt. Sam is my grandson, your family. I want to be part of your lives, not just for now, but for good." Clara studied him for a moment and then nodded slowly. "I believe you," she replied, "but it will take time." Jonathan understood. Trust couldn't be bought or rushed. It had to grow, step by step. Meanwhile, Sam thrived. He loved spending time with his grandfather and wanted to learn all he could about his dad. One day, Saturday in Jonathan's study, Sam asked a question that surprised him. "Grandpa, why didn't you and Dad get along?" he asked gently. Jonathan sighed deeply, filled with regret. "I made many mistakes, so," he said softly, "I was so wrapped up in work that I didn't make enough time for your dad. I thought I was doing what was best, but I was wrong. I didn't see how much he needed me until it was too late." Sam thought it over carefully. Then he said, "But you're here now. That's what matters." Jonathan smiled, tears filling his eyes. "Yes, so that's what matters." As the weeks passed, Jonathan saw the world differently through Sam's eyes. He noticed how his face lit up when he learned something new. He saw how loud he laughed when they played. He saw how much Sam trusted him and loved him. It made him remember what he had lost with Daniel. It also gave him a chance to make things right. One evening, they sat on the balcony watching the sunset. Sam turned to Jonathan and asked softly, "Grandpa, do you think Dad would be proud of us?" Jonathan's heart swelled with emotion. He put his arm around Sam's shoulders and pulled him close. "He would be proud of Sam, and I believe he's watching over us, smiling as time goes on." Jonathan, Clara, and Sam settled into a new rhythm. The lonely billionaire began to find happiness in simple moments like breakfast with Sam, quiet chats with Clara, and shared laughs filling their home after many years. For the first time in a long while, Jonathan felt like part of a family. But not everything was easy. Clara still struggled to trust Jonathan fully. Years of relying only on herself made it hard to let others in. One night, after Sam had gone to bed, Clara sat in the living room with Jonathan. "I need to be honest with you," she said, her voice steady but vulnerable. "I'm still scared that one day you'll wake up and realize this isn't what you want. That we're too much for you." Jonathan looked at her with soft but serious eyes. "Clara, I understand why you feel that way," he said. "I've made mistakes before. I can change the past, but I want you to know I care about you and Sam, not out of duty, but because you're my family." Clara nodded, her eyes brimming with tears. "I want to believe that, Jonathan, I really do, but it's hard to let go of the fear." "Take your time," he replied gently. "I'm not going anywhere." That talk marked a change. Slowly, Clara started opening up more. She shared her hopes and fears with Jonathan. She told him about her struggles as a single mother. She spoke of nights when she went hungry so Sam could eat and her constant fear of losing him. Jonathan listened, deeply moved by her pain. "You're very strong, Clara," he said that evening. "Stronger than most I've known. I'm so sorry you had to go through all that alone." Clara smiled faintly. "I wasn't alone. I had Sam. He's always been my reason to go on." Jonathan reached out and took her hand. "You don't have to do it alone anymore. I'm here. I'm not going anywhere." Meanwhile, Sam kept growing. He did well in school, made friends, and even joined a soccer team. Jonathan made it a point to see every game. He cheered loudly from the sidelines. After one exciting match, Sam ran to Jonathan with a proud smile. "Did you see my goal, Grandpa?" he asked breathlessly. Jonathan grinned and ruffled his hair. "I saw everything. You were incredible out there. Your dad would have been so proud." Sam beamed, then hesitated. "Grandpa, do you think one day we could visit Dad's grave together? I want to tell him about everything." His heart felt full of emotion. "Of course, so that's a great idea." The following Sunday, Jonathan, Clara, and Sam visited Daniel's grave. It was a cool, sunny morning. The cemetery was quiet, with only the wind rustling leaves. Jonathan carried a bouquet of white lilies, and Sam held a small drawing he made. It showed him, Clara, and Jonathan standing together under a rainbow. As they reached the grave, Jonathan felt a lump in his throat. He hadn't come with anyone since Daniel's funeral. Seeing Sam and Clara with him made the moment both sad and healing. Sam knelt in front of the headstone and carefully placed his drawing beside it. "Hi, Dad," he whispered. "It's me. So, I wish I could have met you, but Grandpa has been telling me about you." He paused, voice soft. "He said you are brave and kind. I hope I can be like you someday." Jonathan gently put his hand on Sam's shoulder, tears filling his eyes. "He would be so proud of you. So, just like I am." Clara stayed quiet next to them, hiding herself. After a moment, she stepped forward and gently placed her hand on the headstone, paying her respects to Daniel. She softly whispered, "I wish you could see how much your son has grown. He's so much like you. I hope you can see how much your father has changed, too. He's been there for us in ways I never thought possible. I believe you'd be proud of him." Jonathan's breath caught at her words. He'd carried the burden of regret for so long, but in that moment, he felt a peace he hadn't known in years. Kneeling beside Sam, he gently placed the lilies on Daniel's grave. "Daniel," he whispered, his voice trembling, "I'm sorry for all the time I wasted. I wish I could undo the past, but I promise to care for Sam and Clara. I'll be the father and grandfather they deserve. I'll make sure Sam knows how much you loved him, even if you never met him." They lingered there for a while, sharing stories about Daniel and reflecting on how far they had come. For the first time, Jonathan felt he was honoring his son, not just by visiting his grave, but by building a future for the family Daniel left behind. As they headed back to the car, Sam reached for Jonathan's hand. "Grandpa," he said softly, "do you think Dad can hear us when we talk?" Jonathan looked down at him and smiled. "I think he can. So, I believe he's always with us inside." He pressed his hand over his heart. Sam nodded thoughtfully. Then he said, "I'll talk to him every day so he knows I'm okay." Jonathan's eyes welled with tears again. "That's a wonderful idea. So, he would love that." Months passed, then a year. The bond between Jonathan, Clara, and Sam grew stronger every day. Jonathan sold his mansion and bought a smaller, country home closer to Clara and Sam. He wanted to stay near them and be part of their lives. His focus shifted from wealth and power to love and family. One evening, they sat together in the living room. Clara looked at Jonathan and spoke softly. "I've been thinking," she said. "Sam needs more stability, a real home. I think we're ready for that, all of us." Jonathan looked at her, hope filling his chest. "Are you saying what I think?" Clara smiled warmly. "Yes, I think it's time we moved in as a family." So, sitting quietly at the table, looked up wide-eyed. "Really, we're going to live together?" Jonathan let out a joyful laugh. "Yes, so, if that's what you want, we can find a house with a big yard. Maybe even get a dog." Sam's face brightened. "A dog? Can we name him after Dad?" Jonathan's eyes softened. That's a wonderful idea. So, Daniel would love that. The next weeks were full of activity. They found a county house with a big backyard, just as Jonathan promised. Moving day arrived, and as they unpacked and settled in, Jonathan felt a deep sense of peace. This wasn't just a house, it was a home built on love and hope. That night, under a sky full of stars, they sat her day outside. Sam turned to Jonathan and spoke softly. "Grandpa, do you think Dad is watching us now?" Jonathan looked up at the stars and smiled. "I know he is, so, and I believe he's happy. Happy that we're together. Happy you're safe and loved." Clara reached over and took Jonathan's hand. Her eyes shone with gratitude. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you for giving us this chance, for giving Sam the life he deserves." Jonathan squeezed her hand, feeling the warmth of family all around him. "Thank you, Clara, for trusting me enough to include me in your lives." As they sat there surrounded by the peaceful glow of the night, Jonathan's heart was filled with a deep realization. He finally understood what he had been searching for all along. It wasn't wealth or fame, but love, genuine, healing love that changes everything and makes life worth living. Looking at Sam, his grandson, and Clara, someone who now felt like family, Jonathan knew this was just the start. Together, they would build a future full of hope, laughter, and endless possibilities. Remember to subscribe and click the bell icon, so you never miss one of these heartfelt stories.